CNA.
Innovate, that's what Japanese are known for. Nothing is taboo anymore. And we have the resilience and resources to face the future.
Michio Ishida, CNA, Tokyo.
奈々ちゃんは山梨名物のほうとう食べたいもの触れていません。
ウリンさんってオンとオフあります？
俺全部いつもオフかな。
へえ、こうやってなるんだ。
いい話。はいはい。
Japan Hour, Saturday on CNA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation and SMBC. This is Asia Now.
It's 3 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 12:30 in New Delhi and 2 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Glenda Chong. At this hour, Tokyo and other parts of Japan likely to face an extended state of emergency. Officials are trying to control the spread of the coronavirus ahead of the Olympic Games. Japan mulls sharing its coronavirus vaccines with others. This comes amid calls for aid to Taiwan, which is struggling with vaccination for its population. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison warns of tough times ahead. Authorities race to track the spread of a highly contagious coronavirus variant as Victoria State goes into a new lockdown. An advisory panel to the Japanese government has approved an extension of emergency coronavirus measures for Tokyo and 8 other prefectures. Japan is pulling out all the stops 2 months ahead of the start of the Tokyo Olympics. With growing calls, they cancel the games. The current states of emergency are set to end on Monday, but will likely be extended till the 20th of June. The games begin a month later, from the 23rd of July. The government's task force is expected to make a final decision after taking questions in Parliament this afternoon. Japan recorded more than 4,100 new cases and 111 deaths yesterday. It has been struggling to control the spread of highly infectious new virus variants. Starting today, people entering from India and several other countries will have to self-isolate at government-designated facilities for 10 days. Now, the head of Japan's Doctors Union has warned that authorities can't deny the possibility of a new strain of COVID-19 emerging if the Olympics are held.
コロナとの戦いに勝利するためには、このような動きを止める必要があります。そのために私たちは、東京オリンピックの中止を求めました。
U.S. health experts have said plans to hold the Olympics were not informed by the best scientific evidence. They called for urgent action to assess the health risks of proceeding with the Games and additional measures to help mitigate them. But not all are against the event. The European Union has backed Japan holding the Olympics. The EU says the Games will be a symbol of global unity. Philippine athletes bound for the Tokyo Olympics have received their COVID-19 vaccinations. Over 500 members of the Philippine contingent received the Sinovac jab. Athletes and delegates were given priority by authorities. Some athletes say they are now at ease after receiving their jab. They say they can train with confidence, knowing they have some degree of protection. The International Olympic Committee has sought to convince athletes as well as Japan that the Tokyo Games will be safe. Well, Japan is considering to share its COVID-19 vaccines with others. And this comes amid calls to help Taiwan, which is struggling to vaccinate its population. A ruling party committee has urged the government to provide some of Japan's AstraZeneca stock to the island. Tokyo has secured more than 400 million doses of vaccines, double what it needs for its adult population. Now, meantime, Taiwan's supplies are running out rapidly. Only 1% of its residents have been vaccinated as a new wave of infection hits. A Japanese politician notes that when the country was in need, Taiwan had sent them 2 million masks. In response, the government stressed the importance to ensure fair access to vaccines in every country and region. But officials declined to comment whether Tokyo had received supply requests from specific regions. Nearly 7 million people in Australia's Victoria state are in a new lockdown, and it's its fourth since the start of the pandemic. It took effect overnight and will last for a week. Authorities hope this will help them contain a fast-growing COVID-19 cluster in Melbourne. 4 new cases were reported on the first day of the lockdown, bringing the cluster total to 30 in just 5 days. Victoria residents must now remain at home at all times. Exceptions are made for essential work, grocery shopping, healthcare or exercise. Masks must be worn at all times, well, unless at home. Prime Minister Scott Morrison warns of tough times ahead.
The next 7 days in Victoria will be very challenging. And of course, we are very mindful of the distress and the difficulty that this will impose upon people right across Victoria as a result of what is being described, rightly I think, by the acting Premier as a circuit-breaking lockdown, and a lockdown for 7 days that hopefully won't go as long as that.
Mr. Morrison has said he will ensure Australia is among the leaders in the world when it comes to administering vaccine shots. But Australia has not only been slow in its rollout, vaccine hesitancy is rife. Brianna Piazza tells us what authorities are doing to convince more people to get inoculated.
We've heard many times now from our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, that Australia is the envy of the world because it's managed to, for the most part, stamp out COVID-19. In most of the country, really, life has been going on as normal with little or no restrictions at all. So it's really these lockdowns that are happening tend to be not too often, but still very, very much a concern for businesses, particularly here in Melbourne. So pretty much one of the issues that we're running into with the vaccine rollout is hesitancy. So that relates to very much sections of the population that are eligible to be vaccinated. Many people are holding off on getting their vaccinations because of concerns they may have around the safety of the vaccine. So even just in recent days, we heard that the vaccination hubs in Melbourne were pretty much empty, and people who walked past described these as heartbreaking scenes. But that is starting to pick up in recent days. State authorities in Victoria are starting to talk about opening up vaccinations to younger sections of the population. But also recently we've just heard that businesses are getting on board as well. So Australian airline Qantas is considering offering free flights and frequent flyer points to people who have had both vaccinations. It's understood that they're still trying to iron out a few of the finer details, but if that goes ahead, that would be coming into effect sort of towards the next few months and for the rest of the year. So definitely what we understand is that Australia's borders will remain closed until we can get much of the population vaccinated.
Australia is also battling another growing natural disaster. A plague of mice is threatening farms in New South Wales. Millions of rodents have infested the agricultural plains across the state, forcing many farmers to burn thousands of dollars worth of hay and grain. And there are growing concerns over the potential economic and social crisis. By day, the crisis is less apparent, and that's because the nocturnal animals come out after dark. In the millions. They can be heard scratching ceilings and chewing electrical wires. But residents say the stench of mice, urine and decaying flesh is a constant, both day and night. The plague is a cruel blow to farmers in the state who have been battered by fires, floods and pandemic disruptions. New South Wales Top Agricultural Association predicts the plague will wipe out more than $775 million from the value of the winter crop. The state government has announced nearly $40 million in funding to tackle the plague, and it has ordered 5,000 litres of a banned poison from India. But critics fear the poison will kill not only mice, but also animals that feed on them. And there are fears the infestation will spread. Experts warn the mouse plague is showing no signs of slowing down, and it's spreading across the country. India is scrapping local trials for what it calls